in at 27. First of all, anything from last week or before that even, thoughts or things of that sort. Things you might want to bring up, questions even.
I didn't have anything from last week, but I was reading, I think it was Ephesians yesterday, and something stood out to me. It just blew my mind about us receiving all the fullness of God. And I'm like, wow, God, what does that mean? What is all the fullness of God?
Okay. That's a okay. Any thoughts on that?
Ephesians. Where was that in the Ephesians?
Hold on a second. I was going through my discipleship class. You know, devil ain't let me find it right away, right? Ephesians 3, 16 through 19. And Jesus was praying for us. Actually, this whole prayer just kind of blew me away.
I think it's kind of explained and thinking the first two, 16 and 17.
No, I didn't hear the script. Ephesians 3.
3, 16 through 19, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. It says, I pray that out of his glorious riches, now that was deep, he may strengthen you with power through his spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith.
So that's two parts of the fullness.
And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, that was deep, may have power together with all the saints to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ. That blew me away. Wow, God. And to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Wow.
Well,
How amazing is that?
Exciting. The word is still exciting to us.
Anyone want to comment on that?
From glory to glory to glory.
I'm not even sure our finite minds can comprehend this passage.
Yeah, because we don't know the fullness, complete fullness of either of it. In other words, we don't know the complete fullness of his love.
Right.
We don't know the complete fullness of the spirit. We don't know the complete fullness of Jesus Christ. In other words, we have the fullness because we have access to the Spirit of God.
Mm-hmm.
We hoping that it grows in us, that spirit, that we will have the power and the knowledge and such. Then he's saying we have Christ who is in us, And he hoping that we would understand all that he has done and have his knowledge, have his fullness. And then we have God himself, who is love, and hoping that that also will grow within us to its fullness. In other words, if we fill it all up, if we go to the, and that's why he's saying, he's praying that we will grow to that or get to that. Because if we get to all three of them, we would have the complete fullness, but we never will. But we have the fullness because we have all three. We won't have it in its entirety, but we have all three.
But that was such a deep prayer to me.
Amen.
I'm
Amen.
like, wow, to be filled with the measure of all the fullness of God.
Yeah.
My,
Each measure goes forth one after another, and we get to grow in each area. And we will be some powerful beings and marvelous things, but we'll also be completely pleasing because, you know, if nothing else, God loves, and this is not nothing bad, but he loves self. He loves himself. He loves Jesus, who is him. He loves his spirit, who is him. And if we had the fullness of each one, then he would be so in love with us. I mean, his love can't really increase in a sense, but think about how it would be. We would have the fullness of him in us. Any other thoughts on that, though?
if y'all just meditate on that all week, you'll be all right.
Amen. Back to the book of Matthew there, the Gospel of Matthew. I don't know, have we talked about the various Gospels in itself? How they have, each Gospel in a sense have a theme that they kind of put forth. Whereas, for instance, Matthew, and we'll see it a lot tonight, have the main theme is that Jesus is the King. Jesus is the Messiah. That's how he basically went about in his book, in his gospel. And the theme came out that Jesus is the Messiah. He is the King of the Jews. Mark, his theme was more so they look at his theme as being more of Jesus is the greatest servant of all men. He came to serve, and he shows things in his gospel that shows how Jesus served mankind. Luke, the greatest man of all. Matter of fact, even in Luke's gospel, he takes the genealogy all the way back to who? He takes Christ's genealogy all the way back to who? In the book of Luke. Okay, he takes it back to Adam. Matthew only takes it back to Abraham, I believe it is. Yeah. So Luke is trying to show us that he is not just the greatest, he's not just the Messiah, he's not just the greatest servant, but he's the greatest man that ever lived. And what do you think John was trying to show us? It almost starts off at the beginning.
In the beginning was the Word.
Okay, and the Word was what?
With God.
With God, and the Word
Was God.
was God. John's is trying to show us that Jesus is the Son of God. The Son of God. One of the first books that I would suggest any new convert read is the Gospel of John. Why? Because it will put it'll give them grounds for where they are, to understand that Jesus is the Son of God. He is the great I am. He is I am the door. I am the shepherd. I am all of these. He is the great I am. And it gets them on a solid foundation where people can't come and say Jesus was just a teacher or Jesus was just a prophet. or why can't he, how can a man take away the sins of the world? John starts off with his thing is that Jesus is the Son of God. And so right now we're getting into, Matthew has done this throughout his gospel, but right now we're seeing that kingship come out. Even when he approached them, matter of fact, one of the things they really charged him with was that he was a king of the Jews. And with that charge, they was able to levy the crucifixion upon him with death beyond him, because here it was another king instead of Caesar. And the Jewish people might adhere to another king instead of Caesar. They even said what, that he didn't even pay tribute to Caesar. He didn't pay tribute to him. In other words, I'm my own person. Again, establishing the fact that he was a king or is a king. Any other thoughts there though, or questions or concerns? We talked about Judas a little bit for sure. How and again, this is nothing concrete, but maybe he actually didn't know when he betrayed Jesus that they were going to kill him. He was shocked at that, and he became very remorseful when he saw that that's what was going to happen. And because that was going to happen, and he knew what he had done to cause it, he went and hanged himself. We stopped out at 27:20. We just had finished talking how he had met with Pilate. And they said, what, release, give us Barabbas. Barabbas. His wife told him, look, don't do this. Wash your hand, let this man go free. I don't have some terrible dreams about him. I'm not sure what's going on, but you need to let him go. But Pilate, being a man who not only wanted to please Rome, but keep the Jews in a nice move, if you want to put it that way, nice move. In other words, don't have them to go riotous on him. Went along with the Jewish leaders. So now Christ this all started on Passover Eve. They don't have some lamb. They don't have their bellies full. They don't have some wine. They don't went to the Garden of Gethsemane. Or he don't pray. He found the disciples sleep when he came, and he went back and prayed some more after he woke them up. Came back again. They were asleep. He let them sleep, but then Judas came. Same night, Judas has come now. They arrest him. They take him before Caiaphas, the chief priest, and this is all going on through the night. They take him through the chief priest, and the chief priest then, after he finally finds a way that he can justify the crucifixion of Jesus, and what was their plan? Their plan wasn't to throw him in jail, but to what?
Kill him.
Kill him. The plan was to kill him, put him to death. How they consorted together, how can we put this man to death? Can you see Jesus sitting over there and them going to a council on their own and them saying, look, what can we do to put this man to death? We have to think of a way. We have to scheme and find a way to put this man to death. And so they decided on a plan, and they got him to say, in a sense, that he was the king of the Jews. And that done it. Okay, any other thoughts here before we go on to verse 20? Now, Jesus already, again, he has been beaten by the temple guards, been up all day, had a heavy meal, been up half the night, been before Caiaphas. Now he's now going before Pilate. Now going before Pilate. And someone start at verse 20 and go to, let's say, 26.
Okay. All right, I have it. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said unto them, whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate saith unto them, what shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? They said unto him, let him be crucified. And the governor said, why? What evil hath he done? But they cried out and more, saying, let him be crucified. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye do to it. Then answered all the people and said, his blood be on us and on our children.
One more.
Continue? Okay. Then released he Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged, Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified.
Amen. Asked him over and over again. Actually, he might have been trying to appease what his wife has said. Maybe get along with, let me try to get this man free. Let me do something. But he kept asking them, don't you want, this is a just man. He's done nothing. What am I supposed to do with him? He said, and basically, why don't you take Jesus? Why don't you take this Christ instead of Barabbas? Barabbas is somebody, he's not an evil, well, he probably was, but he was a troublemaker for sure. But this man, Christ, he's done nothing. So why don't you take Christ? They said, no, we don't want him. He said, but listen, they say, no, we don't want him. He said, but what am I supposed to do with him? Crucify him. Kill him. And Pilate, again, trying to appease the Jewish leaders that they might not get riotous, said, okay, see ye to it. And they came back even with this, that, don't you worry about it. His blood will be upon our hands, but also not just ours, but even our children's hands. And then they took Christ and they scourged him and delivered him to be crucified. Any other thoughts here?
But was Pontius, was he really unguilty?
No, he won't be found unguilty.
I'm
Because
talking about Pilate.
Pilate, right. No, he's not, he's guilty. Because if you know the truth and you go along with evil, then you have a problem anyway. You have a problem anyway. If we know the truth, do not do it.
Didn't his wife have a dream and tell him not to touch the innocent man?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's another thing.
So he had a warning too. Not only, he could have made another decision. He could have chose Barabbas, who was guilty, and not even gave the decision over to the crowd. He had the authority.
And he had the authority to let him go. He did have that.
Exactly. So he will be held accountable. Washing his hands, that was nothing compared to.
That just means he can go eat.
He had a,
Mhm.
yeah, it was a heart matter. He just wanted to hurry up. I mean, now we know it was God's will, but he had,
But he still will be held accountable for what he judged.
Right.
right.
I was looking at Deuteronomy 19:10, which is one of the references. And that was a commandment. It said that innocent blood be not shed in thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. And so blood be upon thee. So no, Pilate is not gonna get away. That was a commandment. Don't do it.
Mm.
Well, when I look at it, I see three warnings, and each of those three warnings seem to bring condemnation on both the Jewish people, their descendants, and Pilate, and possibly his descendants.
Yeah.
He's cautioning, he asked them a question in 21. Then he asked them another question, are you all sure? And
Right.
then he asked me again, are you sure? So they were asked three times,
Mhm.
are you sure you want to do this? And they finally say yes. Well, they wanted to do it all along, but they finally do what you said, Barbara. They took the curse. Since
Yeah.
we did a little discussion on curses and blessings. They took the curse, and they really didn't know. But it's kind of funny that once you do sin, you don't understand sin brings curses on you. So that curse is
Mhm.
still with the Jews today. They
It
still
Mm.
is.
are treated badly wherever they go. Wherever
Mm.
they
And,
go.
and there's another reference in 2 Samuel 1:16 when David was telling him, uh, and David said unto thee, thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. It's like, whoa, God.
Mm.
Yeah.
So was he Jewish or was he Roman?
Let's see.
Good question.
That is a good question.
Let me look at my notes. I wrote that
All the
down. I
chief
think
priests
I
he
don't
and
was
Leviticus.
Roman, though.
He's Roman?
I believe he was Roman.
I think it seemed like he was because he was in a position of authority like that, and the Jews were under that government.
Correct. And he wanted to always please Rome.
Mm-hmm.
That's his whole thing, was to get power with Rome. I'm almost positive he was a Roman. He might have been mixed now, don't get me wrong, but he
He might
definitely wasn't full Jewish. That's for sure.
But one of the things also, when you think about the decision that he made, there were steps along the way that he could have chosen something else, and so that was God, giving him an opportunity to back out or use his authority in the right way and whatever. But for whatever reason, he chose to do what he did. And when you think about decisions that we make and those in authority, he had an opportunity to choose different, but he went with the people.
Mhm.
And
But
he,
he thought he chose different.
what did he say about pleasing man? And that's what he was trying to do, please man
Exactly.
instead of God. Uh, he knew he was a just man. He had done nothing wrong, but he wanted to please man. He wanted to please man. Now, this scourging that's about to come, it was done to many prisoners. It was done to many prisoners. And actually, some of them didn't make it. They didn't actually live to be crucified. because it was done. It was done,
Woo.
but it was also done to Jesus for no reason. That's
Right.
one of the things we have to look at.
Right. Right.
It was
To
no-
me, if he's so innocent, why did you have him scourged?
right.
That didn't make sense to me either.
And
When I read that, I was like,
even in that, he went too far. Even if he had found him or turned him over, why
mhm,
would you leave him or give him to them to be scourged? And that's what was going to happen. But I guess that's really, if he gives a person up for crucifixion, that's basically what's going to start happening. The soldiers are going to do it because they've done it to just about every prisoner. They've done it to about every prisoner.
mm.
Mm.
I thought maybe that was a part of the judgment. If you had committed a crime, part one was the scourge, and the next part was you actually hung on the cross.
It could be, but I don't think it was in the sentencing. I don't think that's part of the sentencing, but I think it was, as you say, it was a normal thing to do. In other
Yeah.
words, I don't think the scourging came with the crucifixion. I haven't read anything like that. I'm not saying it didn't know, but it was common for them to do it. It was common for them to do it.
Hey, Pontius Pilate was Roman, according to.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sounds right. Yeah.
Oh. But he was talking to the Jewish people, right?
Yeah.
So when everybody want to blame the Jews for killing Jesus, we can say it's on both parties, both Jew and Gentile.
Yes, for sure.
For
All
sure.
right now.
Actually, that's right.
That's true.
And actually, the Jews didn't have the power to do it.
No.
Yeah, they did. They had the power. They could have said no.
Yeah, they could have. I'm talking about to crucify them. They
Mhm.
didn't have the power to put him to death.
No.
Yeah, they had the power to say no, but they had to go to Rome to have a
So it
death.
was passing the buck, huh?
Mhm.
It was passing the buck.
Yes. Well, they had to go that route. They had to go that route.
So it was like they really wanted him dead.
They really wanted
I
him.
mean, because I think the only reason why they did it that way and they just didn't stone him under Jewish law is they wanted him to not only die, but they wanted him to die a cruel death because they could have stoned him under
Under
Jewish law.
blasphemy. Under
Yeah,
Oh,
blasphemy.
blasphemy. They could have stoned him. They could have had him stoned to death.
they
But
tried several times, but Jesus always got away.
I know, but so they decided to let the Romans do it. That's what they decided to do because they could never get him
And think about
and they were scared.
the people. Many of the people looked at Jesus higher than they did even John the Baptist, and they looked at John the Baptist in a mighty way.
Mhm.
They was always worried about what the people would do to the high priests and the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
Mhm.
That's why they wasn't going to even take him and put him in jail until after the Passover, because they didn't know what the people would do.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was high in his popularity at this time. You don't have 3 years of miracles, 3 years of healing, 3 years of sight giving, all of this. They didn't want to get the people involved in a sense. And all this is done what? At night.
Mhm.
At night. Everybody else at home in bed just about. Well, not everybody, because they met Peter out there, but it was a lot of people they was out of it. They was gone. Okay, let's go on from here. Someone want to read 26 to 31?
I'll read it. Then released he Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. Go in the kitchen. And they stripped him and put him on a scarlet robe I'm sorry, I got distracted by a
That's okay.
kid. And when they had platted a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head and a reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. And they spit upon him, and took the reed and smote him on the head.
One more.
And after that, they had mocked him. They took the robe off from him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to crucify him.
And if we read all that Jesus went through that night, it was a horrible night. It was a horrible night. Because see, not just as it says here, what they took him out and they gathered other soldiers around him, and they started all of their stuff. They started it all on a helpless man who made not a sound. He took it all. He took it all in.
But they knew and believed something else. Why would they use so many soldiers and people to come against him?
You know, people join. You know how a mob gets together?
And misery love company.
Yeah. When someone starts on someone, and the person is not able. Think about when we talk about black and white or the days of slavery. Think about how they catch one black person.
Yes.
A few people. But once they start doing this and doing that, it gathers, and everybody wants to join in. Everybody
It grows, right?
And that's just how it is there. It's just, you know, this is what's going on. This is the action right now. And everybody's coming around. Who's ever up, you know, hey, y'all, this is something going on. It's a crucifixion going on.
Right.
And they go gather. And they allowed these soldiers, not the people, but the soldiers who had access to this court, to this building, to come on in and join in the fun, as they were called. They must have heard about him claiming he was the king of the Jews, so they mocked him as a king. They mocked him. They used a reed for his staff, his scepter, put a crown of thorns upon his head. It's interesting, isn't it? What was one of the first things that happened after they got expelled from the garden? What started growing? Thorns start coming up from the ground as soon as they was expelled from the Garden of Eden. And now it is they're gonna use these thorns, make a crown out of them, and put them on Jesus' head. And see, we may think about those little thorn bushes that we might have, you know, that come with roses. But there's thorns that's about 1 inch long or so. This is probably what they used at that time.
Wasn't there all kind of things happening during
All
that
type
time in
of,
nature?
in nature too. But Matthew don't mention everything either. Doesn't they snatched out patches of hair from his beard, did they not? One of the gospels speak of how they took out patches of hair. Now, and you know, when a patch of hair comes out, many times skin comes out. So it just pulled the whole thing. And it is hard for sometimes to have 2 hairs pulled at the same time. But a patch, which brought the skin and everything probably out with it.
Yeah, because they said he was unrecognizable by the time he got to the cross.
Amen.
They had beat him so bad.
Matter of fact, if we look at who was saying that,
I'm not sure which.
that was in Isaiah. I think it's Isaiah 50, 54.
That his visage was so marred.
Isaiah 53. And, yeah, Isaiah 53. That's one of the references in verse 26. It says 53, 5.
Why don't you read that, sis?
Gotta find it. Oh, they're clowning at this house tonight. Okay.
Someone else grab Isaiah 52:14.
That's the one that says, but he was wounded for our transgressions. Isaiah what?
No, the one that's 52:14 is about his visage was so marred.
Yeah, that's it. His visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men.
And many were astonished.
That's that condition he was in after this beatings and such, his scourging. He was marred
Jesus.
like no one else. And because of, when we think about the length of time that this has went on, again, it started from early that day, having a Passover meal, being arrested, being with the high priest, now being with Pilate, still nighttime, being scourged, taking all these beatings, losing all this blood probably. We'll see that it's a reason why he probably needed help as we come to verse 32. Marred like no other man.
You're saying that's why he needed help with his cross.
I mean, it's a good possibility because of the weakest state he was in. No rest. Because it was really normal for most people to carry their own cross. That was the normal thing. But they allowed him help, possibly because of the condition he was in. That he was so marred, so messed up in this, that he couldn't make it. He just couldn't do it on his own. Someone want to start reading from 32 to 37 right now.
I'll read it. As they went out, they found a man of Syrian, Simon by name. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watch over him there. And over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews."
Amen.
Then two robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now." if he desires him, for he said, I am the Son of God, and the robbers who were crucified him with him also reviled him in the same way. That's crazy.
Okay, why don't we stop there then?
The people on the cross with him was mocking him, and they was on the cross. Like, oh
They
my.
had already, they knew they was bad. They knew they was good.
Exactly.
But here's somebody, look at him. He been beat up so bad.
Exactly.
And they still talked about him. But you know, you wonder sometimes, especially with the claim that they made that he was the king of the Jews. You know, a king that's captured in a foreign land many times are misused and abused. Many times it happens that way. And this is a king to them that's upset Caesar, and he's in their land. And so they really just took advantage of him. This man from Cyrene, it was a place we would call Northern Africa. Here's a man who was probably there for the Passover. Probably there for the Passover to enjoy himself and give God some praise in remembrance of what he had done as he delivered the Jews from Egypt. And
I think it's interesting that they mocked him with truth, like with what was going to be revealed and happen. God was going to save him. He was the king, but they mocked him in that. That's interesting to me.
It's just like what Caiaphas said. He prophesied and he didn't know it either. He prophesied also. Again, this man is here to enjoy it, and he found himself basically in history for all times as the man who carried the cross of Jesus Christ. And they have it right. He was a black man for sure. But here it is. He's written in history because of that. And they came to a place of Golgotha, a place of the skull. The skull, the Latin name is Calvary. They came into Calvary.
But even though the soldiers mocked him, he still brought him into paradise with him. Like, that's crazy. It didn't bother him that they mocked him.
He didn't hold a grudge.
Exactly.
He didn't hold a grudge.
Oh my. He knew a greater purpose, right?
The duration of time between this stuff, he didn't hold a grudge. And that's something that many times we have to look at, that there may be some things done to us and it didn't catch God unaware. It didn't catch him unaware. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been done. It should have been done. It possibly shouldn't have been done, but it didn't catch God unaware. And it means that it's just like we was reading, we had Joseph in Sunday school?
Right.
He had all that to happen to him, but yet and still, what did he say? It was God's plan.
You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
God meant it for good. If we can see that, even in some of the things that's done wrongly to us, because really and truthfully, in due time, it'll work itself out. It will. It might take longer than we want, but it will. On the average, it will work itself out. But if we can see right in the midst of it, or right when it's over with, even that God had done it for a reason, and that we will be okay.
So what do you think the significance is that a black man helped carry the cross?
I'm hoping he's not saying we all help, but no, I don't think that's it.
I'm just
I
curious.
think I look at it, I don't know. I don't know the significance of it, but I do look at the fact that here it is, a Black man helping out in a time of need. He is helping out in a time of need. Here
But
we
did he
go.
have a choice? You think he had a choice?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No. But here we go again back to the cradle of civilization. And we bring in a Black man who is the cradle of civilization to be a part of this. Now, is this to say he was a part of the crucifixion? I don't think so, because he's helping. And he had no say so in it anyway, but he's helping him.
What does it mean by the word he was compelled? He was compelled. They compelled him.
They made him.
They made him.
They made him do it. He didn't have a choice in it, because Roman soldiers could do just about what they wanted to do. Especially they couldn't do it to a Roman, but to a Jew or a slave, they could do just about what they wanted to. That's why what Paul said, I'm a Roman citizen. He used that to stop himself, to stop them from taking advantage of him, to stop them from possibly beating him, and maybe even crucifying him, whatever they might have wanted to do, because they could do almost anything to a Jew or slave. And that's why he appealed to his Roman citizenship. And so they basically made this man do it. They took off his clothes and gave him a robe to mock him as a king. And they did. They actually told the truth in their mocking. They told the truth.
No.
When they called him the king of the Jews, that's the truth they was really saying.
Right, correct.
And I thought only one thief went to paradise with him.
It did. It was only one. But also in the fact he said, for he said, I am the Son of God. They was talking about him then in verse 43. They was really mocking him then, but that was the truth.
Right.
Even the fact that he said how was it? He saved others.
Right.
How many people was he gonna save? Not only did he save others, he would save a multitude.
Exactly. That was truth. They was really prophesying, right? But they didn't know.
But then somebody always taught us that, and I don't know if it was through the Spirit or just something, if they really knew what they were doing, they wouldn't have crucified him.
Probably so. I was thinking it had to be a lot of anger in the soldiers to do what they did to him. That just seems to be an overkill.
They enjoy cruelty.
Yeah, they was getting brownie.
Man is an evil being. Unless he gets saved, he can grow and get to any place. He can get to any place. They don't matter. They enjoyed it.
Right, that was their entertainment back in the day. They had an arena and was throwing people to the lions. That was
man can easily get to that point. And matter of fact, man has been to that point on many occasions. We don't know. We've been living in a decent, somewhat decent anyway, civilization. But when you go back in time, it was really bad. It was really bad.
Yeah, because they used to burn their kids, sacrifice their kids. Somebody elevator wasn't going up.
They were just evil. And they
mean,
still evil.
I'm saying,
a
anytime you
king
can
for
burn your
people,
kids,
if he felt threatened that they might take his kingdom, he'll kill his own people.
They still doing stuff to kids. Well, not just kids, but people.
I'm saying, right, so they
I
still
can't
doing
imagine
that.
how it was in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Mm-mm.
When man was doing everything he wanted to do. I can't imagine how evil and what they were doing then. We hear about
They
the
trying
homosexuality and
to use
stuff and all of that, but they had went evil in all type of ways. All type of ways. They do experiments on people.
They still doing experiments.
Right. They do. Man, I'm telling you, it don't surprise me, especially when you're trained and that's around you all the time. It becomes the norm. It becomes the norm instead of the exception. I look at, or I think about some of the Native Americans, the Indians, and don't get me wrong, white men done it too, but I know that they had a way of doing things that would seem almost outrageous to us. But it's how they were raised. It was how they was raised. And these Roman soldiers was raised this way. That's what they was about. I think one of the things Mark Lewis said one time is, man's greatest strength is always also his greatest weakness. And that is he adapts to his environment. And if we see all that stuff around us and we adapt to that environment. We adapt our ways there. And it doesn't, look how many, when we look at TV nowadays, especially the horror pictures, it was a time when you might see a little blood and you feel a little shaky. But what have they done? They now cut off arms and heads and legs and they pull out innards and they do everything. They do everything. And man is becoming more and more accustomed with being, as they said before, desensitized.
Yeah.
More and more accustomed to these things. And that's how it is in real life. We want more and more. People think of new ways to do things, new ways to create evil. So no, it doesn't surprise me about man doing this, because man can go that way easily. It doesn't take a lot. It's, especially if we talk about a generation or two, it doesn't take a lot. We're going to get ready to close. Is there any other thing we need to speak of before we close out here, though? We're going to start at probably 44 next week. Anything else, though?
So we need to study that, huh?
Well, it'd be nice to read ahead. It'd be nice.
What was the theme, Pastor?
Matthew was basically Jesus is the king of the Jews, the Messiah.
Who is
I
that?
asked you guys to pray for Latasha. She called and asked if she could use the church. Her father died. They were looking for a place to funeralize him. But remember her and her family and prayer. Our church was the only church that they were willing to do it in, so they had to do something else.
Who is Latasha?
Remember Tasha?
She
Who
used
used
to
to
sing
go to
our
our church?
church.
Yeah, with the little boy. She had a little boy, right?
So
Latasha.
Latasha Buchanan, her entire family came because of her. Just
The
remember
one with
them in prayer.
all that family.
Yeah.
They came because of her. But just remember her and her family. Her father died.
The father died.
The father died.
And I'll just say on this last one, 42, and I know I might mention it next week, but it goes back to, again, he saved others. Himself, he could not save.
Yeah.
He wouldn't save himself. He wouldn't save
Save
himself.
others. Exactly.
In order to save others, he wouldn't save
Had to
himself.
die. Yeah.
So actually, while they was mocking him, they was actually complimenting him.
Yes, they wouldn't have looked at it that way, but yes.
And you know the thing that reading of the scriptures, that I don't know why it bothered me so much, but the part where it said they were wagging their heads, that seemed to be troublesome to me.
Mhm.
Wagging their heads, because that's a common thing that some people do when they are trying to get a point across.
Mm-hmm.
But I've
You
always
know,
thought that the Cyrenian that was
right.
compelled, when he was compelled, I've always thought it was something in him, like it was like something I gotta do. I
Something that
didn't
drew
think
him
that the
to it.
Romans.
No, he was compelled by the Roman soldiers to do it. He didn't have a choice in the matter, basically.
He was the right man at the right time, right? Not in the wrong place, but at the right place.
Actually, he was right. He was a good person. It was good for him to be there at that time.
Yes, that was divine intervention, divine connection.
And it's just like the one with the alabaster box,
Exactly.
the one whose name went down because of the incident. It's always mentioned when you see the Easter pageant or the resurrection pageant at Christmas time or whatever. You see a Black person come in and carry a cross. Remembered throughout time because of the incident there. And again, that's why I like it, because you know he left his country, or he left that morning not thinking that this was going to be a historical moment for him, not thinking that that day would change, in a sense, his perspective or how people looked at him forever. Changed him forever. But
If you want to reference that,
and that's something we have
the scriptures, Numbers 15:35, 23 and 26. It talks about how those people that were with the Jews were going to be blessed in Israel.
Yeah.
Well, if nothing else, we're going to go ahead and close out. Heavenly Father, we just thank and praise you, Lord God, for this time. We thank and praise you again for your word, my Lord God. It's rich, hallelujah, and powerful, sharper than a two-edged sword, hallelujah. We thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Adding, Lord God, the truth from the error, Lord God. We praise you, my Father, for all within us. We praise you for all that you have done. As you just continue to be with us, my Father, bless us as we, hallelujah, go, hallelujah, and separate from one another, but not your presence. We ask that you would be with our families, within our homes, my Lord God, within our workplace, my Lord God, continuing to lead and guide us and showing us the way that we should go and giving us the strength to go that way. In Jesus' name, we thank and praise you, asking for safety and your continuous mercy. Amen and amen.
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 Oh, yes, Lord. Thank you, Anthony.
You're welcome, sis.